To the lost souls, the disintegrated spirits, the wanderers, the dreamers, and the seekers, welcome to the Embodied Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Danielle McGinnis. Our work in this podcast will be to foster healing, transformation, self-expression, creativity, and the development of consciousness. So with our intentions grounded firmly, let's settle in and do some integration work. Hey friends, happy Thursday and welcome back to another episode of the Embodied Podcast. If you guys are loving what you're hearing on the show, I would really appreciate it if you slid over to iTunes, dropped a 5-star rating or a written review, and just let me know what you are loving about the show, what you want to hear more of, what you want to hear less of. Any and all feedback is welcome. That feedback gets the show organically into more ears and more souls across the world. So one more piece of housekeeping before we get going into today's episode. You go back to episode 142. It's the episode that I offered for you guys on the zodiac sign of Cancer. And in that, I mentioned that in my Transformation Collective community, my friends Jessica DePazzi and Jennifer McMaster and I, on July 26th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, are hosting a free roundtable discussion on that zodiac sign of Cancer. And you can find all of the details on that in the Transformation Collective community. If you're listening to this episode when it comes out on Thursday, the roundtable discussion is going to be next Tuesday night. So go ahead and join the free community. We would love to see you there. We would love to answer questions. We would love to just jam in the community, and that's what it's about. So, on to today's episode. So, I actually just got back from a morning walk, and as I was walking my dogs, I was looking down at them, and I noticed all of the weeds that come up through the sidewalk. And it was really, I had one of those kind of just in awe at nature moments. How much concrete material shit that we throw onto the earth, and then the earth still springs up through the cracks. I think that is an incredible metaphor. That's what came to mind when I was really thinking about oh my gosh, that weed has to work really hard to make its way up through the cracks in the concrete. I was thinking about the symbolism of weeds, and most often humans have a pretty pejorative association to weeds, and they're a nuisance and they're annoying. But that, I think, if we think about that psychologically, these pieces of our earth, of our matter, of our psychology that come up through the cracks, come up through our defensive structures that we've put in place in order to make our lives more efficient and more adaptable. And all of these kind of nuisance and annoying elements of that deep psychological earth come up, and what we have to do to address those. I just think it's a really interesting metaphor. I feel just like the weed that has to really work its way up through the concrete and weave through the different layers of defensive structures, our perceivable pathologies, our symptomologies actually do the same thing. As humans, I don't think that we realize how many defensive and adaptive structures that we have in place just to get through in the world. And there's nothing wrong with that, but if there is a weed that's coming up through the cracks, I think it might deserve your attention. And so I really just wanted to do this short episode on that metaphor, and to maybe invite a specific contemplation of, maybe what are some weeds that are coming up through the cracks in you? What are the shadow materials that are connected to your psychological earth that are weaving their way up through all of those defensive, adaptive structures that we've put in place so that our life is just so, it's efficient, it's adaptable? And what are the things that maybe are coming up through the cracks? And sometimes we see this as body aches or pains. Sometimes we see this with addictions. Sometimes we see this with kind of impulsive behavior. So really just taking a moment to contemplate, like, what are your weeds that are coming up through the cracks? And what type of attention do those weeds deserve? So with that being said, again, if you guys go back and listen to episode 142 on the zodiac sign of Cancer, and if you check out the show notes below, you'll find all of the links to join the free roundtable discussion this coming Tuesday, July 26th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I hope to see you guys there, and we'll chat on Sunday. Bye, guys.